So we heard, as we're beginning this discussion of justice out of what started off just sort of having a chat. Well, of course you can't trust Socrates just to sit and have a chat. We're going to get into a good Socratic philosophical dialogue here, and here's where it starts. Cephalus has suggested that it's really important when you get old to make sure that you've got plenty of money to give, both to pay back debts to those who you owe, and also to make sure that you're right with the gods, make plenty of sacrifices and offerings and that sort of thing. So Cephalus's position overall is that doing what's right, or just doing right in general, involves two things: telling the truth and giving others what is owed to them. Well, telling the truth is an easy part. Don't lie, right? This is not a tough one figured out. But Socrates is going to ask, well, what does it mean to give someone what they're owed? Is it just like paying debts and sort of, paying back what money you've borrowed with interest? Or is it something else? Well, Cephalus says, no, it's not just paying back debts, it's sort of giving people what they deserve. And this helps to take care of a potential counterexample that Socrates gives to Cephalus. Socrates says, well, if it's just paying debts, then say I borrow a weapon from a friend, and of course this is ancient Greece where everyone has swords and things just lying around. So say I borrow my friend's sword, and then it just so happens that my friend goes crazy, and he comes to my house in his crazy murderous rage, and he asks for his sword back. Well, in a sense, right, I owe him his sword. It's his sword. I borrowed it. I should give it back. But it's a really bad idea to hand a sword to a crazy person. This is the sort of deep philosophical insight that you'll get out of this class. So Socrates says, well, it can't just be giving people what they are owed like a debt. And so Cephalus agrees. He says, well, yeah, it's not that. It's giving them what they deserve. And an insane person clearly doesn't deserve to have a sword that he can use to go do whatever insane things he wants to do. Instead, right, he probably deserves to be locked up or calmed down or something like that. This boils down to a definition that's something like, well, what's deserved is your friends deserve help and your enemies deserve harm. Well, we get to another question here. So if this is what morality is, if it's helping your friends and harming your enemies, what good is morality? Is it any good, for example, if you're not at war and there are no enemies around to harm? Well, Polemarchus comes into this point, and he says, well, it seems like morality is only good. We go through this sort of list of possible times when morality could be good. It ends up that it's really only useful, Polemarchus thinks, when you want to store something or hide something away. So maybe moral people make like really good bankers, for example. Any other time, right, you want an expert in something else. So if you want to just sort of help your friends, well, it's not that you want a moral person, right? If you want to help a sick friend, you want a doctor. If you want to help a poor friend, you want a businessman, something like that. Just being moral doesn't seem good enough. So Polemarchus says, well, maybe what the moral people are experts at is sort of keeping things safe, hiding things away. But this doesn't seem all that useful in one sense, because we don't want to keep all that much stuff just hidden. We want to use our stuff. That's what stuff is for. And it also seems that it doesn't sound a lot like what we think morality is conventionally. This also, Socrates points out, suggests that moral people could be really good at acting immorally, in the same way that say, a doctor could make someone sick pretty easily, or a businessman could make a business fail pretty easily. Well, a moral person, if they're really good at hiding things away, could also be really good at breaking into places where things are hidden and stealing them. That sounds really immoral. So this sounds like a lousy definition. So we're going to go back to the previous definition of just more straightforward help and harm. And so let's see if that's any better. Well, we get this question: should we help people who we think are friends, or people who are actually friends? And the answer is pretty clear: people who are actually friends. Because if we make mistakes about people who just seem like friends, then we might sometimes help our enemies and harm our friends, and that seems bad. So we should only help people who are actually friends. We should also only harm people who are actually our enemies. This also seems plausible. But what is it to harm? Now this question comes up. Socrates loves his definitions, right? Well, harm makes someone or something worse off. So if you harm a horse, for example, it becomes a worse horse. So if you break a horse's leg, first you're a jerk, don't do it. You've also made this a worse horse, right? It's now worse at running, it's worse at probably eating, at getting what it wants. This is a problem. And so we're going to get this question, well, should we really be harming other people? Do we want to make these people worse people, in the same way that if you harm a horse, it's a worse horse? This seems like a problem, and so Socrates is going to disagree with this pretty strongly. We'll talk about that in the next video.